Back with you. Thanks for staying on the newsfeed, PM. Retired Justice Sisi Khampepe has adjourned her ruling on a recusal application brought by former presidents Jacob Zuma and Thabo Mbeki. Khampepe is accused of bias and misconduct in her role as chairperson of a judicial commission of inquiry into stalled Truth and Reconciliation Commission investigations and prosecutions. The former heads of state argue that Khampepe is conflicted, citing her previous work at the NPA and her involvement in the TRC-related matters that now fall under review by the Commission. Let's talk now to Foundation for Human Rights Executive Director Zaid Kimmie. Zaid, good to have you, and thanks so much for your time. How do you see this application, and do you see it as a legitimate legal challenge, or is it just a tactic to delay accountability on this particular matter?
Well, the counsel for Presidents Mbeki and Zuma have made their arguments, and while they seek to make specific legal points, from the family side, this is perceived very much as a tactic to delay the actual work of the Commission. While I'm not going to pass judgment here on the merits of their opposition, that Judge Khampepe will do, the indications are clear that this isn't the end of their attempts to delay the work of the Commission, and if their application is denied, it would. They've clearly signalled that they will seek alternative means to delay the work of the Commission.
Yeah.
And for the families who celebrated the establishment of the Commission back in May 2025, it's disappointing to find that once more we're going to be embroiled in legal wrangling rather than in the actual work of the Commission.
How do the families view the points raised by the two former presidents in this application? I mean, how would they view a situation where, if indeed, as Advocate Mpofu puts it, the Commission chair comes and says, yes, I wrote that email and I did give such instruction or such advice to the evidence leader. How do the families view that? Because the two presidents view that as misconduct and therefore something that should not have happened.
Well, we don't have a clear answer from the Commission on what actually happened. There are allegations that have been made without any substantiating material, and it's difficult for us as outsiders to comment on that. I'm going to leave that issue to be resolved by the Commission. Of course, any outcome that further delays the work of the Commission or undermines the Commission's integrity is not going to be to the family's advantage. Their interest here is not in the reputation of Justice Khampepe or the other panel members or the legal counsel involved. Their interest here is to have their question answered.
Yeah.
And any resolution which gets us closer to having those questions answered is, I think, what they would look forward to.
Yeah. I mean, the move is supposed to find resonance with the families. It's supposed to find resonance with the broader public in terms of public trust in the findings and the credibility thereof. So how would a move like that affect that aspect of credibility as far as the family is concerned and the broader public finding this process to be that credible, if it is indeed found that there was such communication?
Yes, obviously that would be disastrous for the Commission if it made any progress at all, only to be undone because of prior actions of various parties, would be the worst possible outcome for the families. We're at the point now where it is clear that this issue is going to have to be resolved. President Zuma's legal team have made it clear that even if the application is denied, they will seek other avenues. And all we can hope for from the family side is that these issues are resolved speedily and that the Commission is left untainted and can carry on with its work.
Yeah.
the family's been waiting for many, many years, decades, to have these questions answered. And while it's disappointing to have these delays, I think they're going to persevere. If there's any intention that these sorts of delays would scupper the quest for justice, I think those parties will be disappointed. The families are committed to seeing this process through, and we only hope it can be done as speedily as possible.
What's the potential consequence, especially on the side of the Commission, if this work is stalled? And in the manner that you put it, that even if the recusal application is not successful, one of the presidents saying, well, I'll go all the way. I mean, we know when he says he'll go all the way, it could take years.
Yes, that is, unfortunately, we are going to be bystanders to that process. We can certainly ask that if there are legal challenges, that the courts treat them with the urgency they deserve, that they take into account the views of the families, and that any further delay will just cause additional pain. And of course, the families are well aware that this commission is about delaying justice. And so it is disappointing that delays now delay this very inquiry. We can only hope that the legal system, when it's confronted with this question, mobilizes itself and acts expeditiously so we can get the answers we want and then get on with the business of the commission. Those questions are still unanswered, and we hope that, and we believe they must be answered. So, we'll stand and wait and try and persuade people to get these issues resolved as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I've spoken to another civil society organization, also a stakeholder in this particular matter. They tell me they've got quite a huge list of people who are signed up, particularly as far as reparations is concerned. They look at this process and they look at retired Justice Khampepe's involvement in the original TRC and later in the Constitutional Court as a plus. They're saying it is a plus. It's not something that should be looked at as a conflict of interest. How do you see it?
Well, we've argued that given the questions before the Commission, which is about why prosecutions did not happen, the purported political interference, her prior role in the TRC did not at any stage deal with political interference. Her role there was as a commissioner and as a member of the Amnesty Committee, and that question was just about whether or not people should be granted amnesty. She had no role to play in whether prosecutions proceeded or not. So, of course, yes, that sort of background is a positive. If the question is that, the sort of person who sits on this committee must have no involvement at all with the TRC or the questions of prior apartheid-era crimes, I think it's a high bar to set to find people who meet those criteria. So, as we do not think from the family side that her prior involvement is a bar to fulfilling her role in the commission.
Yeah. Well, one of the presidents seems to be leaning on legacy issues or historical issues, if you like, of her past rulings that were adverse against him particularly. And so if she is now going to be looking into their administrations, it might present a bias because she has already, in previous instances in her role at the Constitutional Court, ruled negatively towards that president. How do you read that?
I think, it's a well-established rule that having ruled on issues before with particular parties is no bar to sitting in judgment on other issues involving those same parties. I think President Zuma and his team believe that she's biased against them, but she was following the rule of law when she gave those Constitutional Court judgments. She was joined by a majority of the Constitutional Court in making those judgments. He has every right to feel aggrieved by those judgments, but he has no right to claim that she is in some inherent way biased against him.
Zaid, we appreciate your time and thank you very much for coming on. Executive Director for Human Rights there at that foundation, Zaid Kimmie.